Hello and welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show. It's our latest Leeds United debate show. I'm Stephen Brown and joining me as ever is Jason Booker, here to discuss everything Leeds United. Tonight's discussion, it's all about Joe Piroe, and we're asking the question whether Mr. Piroe will ever be a success under Daniel Farke. Please give the video a like if you're watching and get involved in the debate by getting your comments in and what you think of the Joel Piroe situation. Let's set this thing up, Jason, then let's rewind. Leeds United desperate for a striker. We're hunting after Cameron Archer.
Cameron Archer. God, we've just gone back 10 years.
I'll be saying Ryan Kent next or something. Christ almighty. Yes, Cameron Archer we're after, and then that falls through. He goes, obviously, to Sheffield United. I remember being on holiday, and I think you might have even texted me about Joe Piroe, and I had limited Wi-Fi, and I was like trying to get updates on Twitter about had we signed him or not. And it was a remarkable thing to see, because obviously Joe Piroe was someone we were screaming for, top player in the Championship, scored an unbelievable amount of goals, 49 goals in 88 Championship games. It felt like it was going to be a match made in heaven at that time. And look, he played a lot of games for Leeds, a lot of games on the trot, all over number 10, swapping around with Rutter, but he's lost his place in the team. Jason Bamford's taken his spot. Rutter's been moved back, and the performances on the pitch look a little bit better. Take us back, Jason. Joe Piroe, unbelievable record at Swansea. What did we think we were getting when we signed him?
I think we thought we were getting a natural finisher. I think most fans would have thought that we were getting an out-and-out 9. Maybe our expectations of what an out-and-out 9 is for Leeds United, or is in general nowadays, has changed, because I do think it's changed. I don't think you see any or that many typical out-and-out 9s. When I think of a 9, I think of Alan Shearer, I think of Andy Cole, I think of Dwight York, Teddy Sheringham. You know, some of the names that I would say as a typical out-and-out 9, and it's changed and developed over the years. More modern day, I would think of Karim Benzema, Harry Kane, but even Harry Kane drops extremely deep to get involved in the game in different ways now, because the strikers are not just there to put the ball in the back of the net anymore.
No.
Really now you look at your out-and-out 9s, and you probably do look at somebody like a Patrick Bamford. He's probably more of a modern day number 9. His finishing ability can sometimes definitely be put into question, but running channels, fighting with the centre-backs, holding the ball up, bringing other players into play, things like that are more characteristics that you'll find with a more modern-day number 9. So, coming back to the question, I think we thought we were signing a natural finisher, which I think he is. I think we were signing somebody that would score us a lot of goals. His goal ratio is 1-2, which is exemplary at any level. I think most fans would have probably expected him to be a little bit more dynamic, certainly running in behind, things like that. But yeah, we signed a goal scorer.
Yeah, and his record so far for Leeds, 9 goals, 1 assist, 24 matches. He's not netted since the Ipswich victory a few weeks ago. And like we say, he's lost his place. Let's dig down now into his kind of role in a Daniel Farke team, because I remember hearing murmurings at the time when we signed him, some people suggesting that he wouldn't work in a Farke type team, and it was one of those where you put it to the back of your mind, you think, oh, we're not focused on that, it'll work because we've spent a lot of money and he's a great player, and of course it's going to work. But some of those niggles actually kind of come to the fore. I mean, he looks uncomfortable pressing. He just does. I think he's improved a little bit at it. I think there were a game a few matches ago where I thought actually his pressing was really, really good, and it looked as if he'd improved massively on that. But there's always been something that's not quite worked, and I think it's been reflected in, I mean, how many times have we come on the match reviews, Jason, and said, where was Piroe that game? We've not really seen any impact from him, and that's happened a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. Because I think in the Daniel Farke system, the 9 needs to now do what Pat's doing, or what we've seen as an example from Pat over the last 3 games. And the facts are is Piroe's never shown that he's been able to do that previously and at Leeds. I actually don't think he's quick enough to do it. I think he's probably intelligent enough to do it because I do think he's an intelligent footballer, but I don't think he's quick enough to run the channels and press the play in the way that Bamford does, or in the way that Teemu Pukki did at Norwich. So then what you're then asking him to do is fill this spot as a number 10. And the problem is with him doing the role as the number 10 in a Daniel Farke system is that you need to be really good technically in between the half spaces, which is not. He looks like a striker that is trying to do a number 10 role. You know, if you have a look at the statistics that Emi Buendia put out at Norwich, and Norwich with Buendia in the team and without him in the team, the statistics are unbelievable. Very similar to a Calvin in the Bielsa team and Calvin not in the Bielsa team. The points per game are drastic. I think it went from something like 0.7 points per game with Buendia to 2.2 points per game with Buendia. Sorry, 0.7 without Buendia, 2.2 with Buendia. And I think, you know, he's asked him to kind of do this role and find moments where he then arrives late into the box from the 10 position, but it loses you so much in the creative aspects of the game. That's why we've seen so many games where we're not creating anything. You know, earlier on in the season, we're XG heavy for fun and we weren't being clinical enough. But over that period of games before this, you know, three wins in a row, the XG levels have been through the floor. We're not been creating anything. Some games we've not even had a shot on target. And a lot of that comes down to that creative pin in the number 10 role not doing their job properly. And that comes down to Joel Piroe.
Yeah, it's a funny one. And I'd love to be in that recruitment meeting when they were identifying Piroe as this is the guy we're going to go after. And, you know, if others had concerns about how he would fit in a Farke system, I mean, what was Daniel Farke thinking himself? I mean, was it just a case of, look, we're desperate to get a goal scorer in this team and he kind of can do this number 10 role, you know, maybe. I mean, we had that press conference, didn't we, where, you know, Farke was getting asked every week about Joe Piroe and Rutter and why isn't Piroe at the number 9? And then Farke obviously shut it all down by saying he knows his strikers. I mean, how much is it to blame for Farke in terms of why didn't he realise that this might work out this way?
I put all the blame on Daniel Farke for this one, and you know, I'll call it as it is. I'm happy. I'm right behind Daniel Farke. I've complimented him a lot recently on some of the decisions that he's made. One being the fact that he was big enough to make the decision to bring Piroe out of the team and put Pat in. Yeah. You know, all kudos for him. But this situation is his own doing. The recruitment of him in the first place, and then the insistence on trying to make this situation fit. What I think he saw is that he would start Gio as the 9 and ask Gio with his better pace than Piroe to run the channels. The problem is that Gio's not a 9. So you're asking two players to fit roles that they don't. And ultimately then Gio's going to sometimes run the channels, but then what he will also do is switch places with Piroe and taking the responsibility of that 10 to allow Piroe to arrive late or make the runs in between the defenders. The problem is that Gio's not really experienced enough to do both of them roles. He doesn't know that role or position. He's that's not what he's about. So for me, it was a big mistake by Daniel Farke to expect that to work. I think he thought that he could develop it and bring that out of Piroe and Rutter, because I think it affects them both. I know Rutter has been good this season, but he's also had some moments in games where I thought he was really poor at 9. And we kind of let him get away with it because the next minute he'll do something unbelievable and he'll wow the fans, which is fair. Flair players are like that sometimes. But in that 9 role, I think he's had several games this season where he's not been great. Very similar to Piroe being played out of position in the 10. Rutter was being played out of position in the 9. So
it was bizarre, wasn't it? Because you were watching games where Rutter was the number 9, but then I'm seeing Rutter picking up the ball on the half turn in centre mid.
Yeah.
And you're kind of going, where's Piroe at this point? Yeah. Because then the ball would, you know, end up in the opponent's penalty box and still Piroe's not there, you know, and it was kind of frustrating to watch it.
Over these last 3 games, think about how rarely you've seen Pat in our own half. You just don't see it. Very, very rarely. Whereas when Piroe's playing up there, you see both of them in your run out. You see Rutter and Piroe dropping as far back as the halfway line or even inside the, especially Piroe. So now that they've got a concrete 9 up there, it allows Rutter to do his thing in behind. I think he's far more effective when he's in that a creative environment, got more space to work in. He's not working in between defenders and midfield. He's just working against the midfielders. So for me, it just makes far more sense. And, when Piroe does come back into the side, because I'm sure he will get opportunities, he just needs to be played as the 9. And he needs to be developed into doing the role that he needs him to do. And if he can't, he shouldn't play.
Yeah, there was a bit where he came on, I think, for Pat. I'm trying to remember which game it was. It might have been the Birmingham game, possibly. And he kind of not ducked out of kind of the physical battle, but it just wasn't there. You know, some players, they just can't muck in and get stuck in. He just didn't do it. And it was noticeable straight away. He went, oh, Pat's been doing that all game, and it's helped. So if he's going to be a success under Farke going forward, Jason, how is this thing going to work? Because, Farke seems married to the formation. What would work for Piroe? Would it be kind of, okay, you talk about maybe him as a second striker off Pat with a number 10 in behind or something? Is that what we're kind of talking about here? Or, what would make it work for Piroe?
I think there's an avenue that it could work as an inside forward from the right. He played there for Swansea as an inside forward from the right, but then you'd be left in a world where you'd lose so much in a Daniel Farke system because you've not got an out-and-out winger, and you'd lose Dan James. I don't think he will ever do the full workload that he needs to do under Daniel Farke as a 9, just because I just don't think he's quick enough. I think he will still have clutch moments this season. He'll come on and score his goals. The goal that he scored against, it must have been the Ipswich goal. Yeah. Nobody else in the squad scores that, I don't think. The way that he does a little Cruyff, a little step over and takes it onto his right foot.
Brilliant goal.
Yeah, natural finisher. The goals against it, not Ipswich away, the Millwall away goal, both feet. I think he's the most natural finisher in the whole team. I just don't know in this system how you end up getting what you need out of the 9, out of possession, in transition, and then the finishing ability of Piroe all in one. I just don't think it's going to come in Piroe in that position. So it's a real tricky one, mate. But he's not a 10. He's not a 10.
No, it doesn't feel like it, does it? One potential problem later down the line for Leeds is, for both scenarios, actually, if you get promoted, is Joe Piroe good enough for the Premier League? If you stay down in the Championship, you've got a player on a long contract that you just spent a lot of money for, but doesn't fit your system. What do you do with that?
I mentioned earlier he's only 23. He definitely has got time to develop and get better at what Daniel Farke wants. And I would hope that the gauntlet's thrown down to Piroe, that you need to get better at these aspects of your game. Just because he's not likely to gain too much in way of pace doesn't mean that there isn't things that he can and can't do to get better in that role. One of the things that Pat is so clever at is the way that he bends his run to cut off play. If you watch him when Leeds are out of possession, Pat is always intentionally running in certain directions to force the play from their opponents in a certain particular way. Piroe can do that. That's not difficult to understand what you need to do. Pat's just excellent at it because he's got good stamina and he is quite quick. Piroe can still find ways to run channels. Teddy Sheringham, I mentioned him earlier, was probably the slowest number 9 you're ever going to see, but he was still able to run off the back of defenders. And he's one of the best Premier League strikers we've ever seen, is Teddy Sheringham. So, maybe it's too much to expect him to get to them kind of levels. But the point is that there's still ways that he can adapt his game to work within Daniel Farke's system. The question is that's the route if we stay down. If we stay in the Championship, I think that's the explanation of what we do with him next season. If we go up, for me, I don't see a pathway for Joel Piroe to be our out-and-out number 9, and he certainly wouldn't be good enough in the Premier League at number 10. My word, he'd be miles off it. So I don't see any other solution other than Joel Piroe leaving Leeds United and probably somebody within the Championship paying similar to what we paid for him in the hope that he rediscovers 20 goals, 25 goals a season as a striker in the Championship, which he definitely could. I think in the system that suits him, you will see him bang goals in for fun. We've seen how good of a finisher he is already.
Yeah, indeed. Great stuff. Well, we'll leave it there. We're going to see how this one plays out with Joe Piroe over the remainder of the season. It's fascinating how narratives on players can change. I mean, a few weeks ago, we'd never have thought Bamford would be back leading the line, but here we are now, and we're talking about him starting week in and week out. It'll be fascinating to watch what happens with Joe Piroe going forward. I hope that he develops his game and can find a way of being a Farke player, really. But we'll wait and see, guys. If you've liked and enjoyed this video, please do pop a like on it and also subscribe to the channel and get your comments in as well. We want to hear what you think about Joe Piroe and whether this will ever work under Farke. I've been Stephen Brown. With me for this debate show has been Jason Booker. Jason, thank you very much, mate.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next time with other debates on the channel, so do stay tuned for that as well. Thanks for watching.